Hey, what's up everybody? I'm SuperSonicJB, and I decided I want to become my own remake, so let's get rid of all this crap and start over fresh. Now for my remake, I want to add a few changes, like the intro music for example. Let's change it from that to this. Man, this reminds me of the Turtles in Time remake. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Heroes in a Half Shell, Turtle Power. Man, I love that theme song. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a comic book series turned into a TV show, turned into a video game, turned into a bunch of movies, turned into a bunch of toys. Man, it has it all! The series started in the 80s and was a huge hit for kids and adults all over the world. In 1987, the series got its own cartoon that was actually pretty good. I mean, just the concept alone of 4 mutant turtles becoming ninjas and being trained by professional martial artists who also got mutated in a rat sounds entertaining, right? Now, growing up, Tmnt was a huge part of my childhood. I used to have all the action figures, and I loved watching the 2003 and 2012 series a lot. I actually didn't get the chance to watch the 80s TV show until much later in life, and I'll admit, it's actually a pretty good show. However, the main thing we're going to be talking about today is a certain video game slash arcade game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, Reshelled. You know, that weird slash boring remake of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. Yep, we're looking at that today. Now, before we get into the remake, let's talk about the original versions, both the arcade and the SNES versions. The arcade version was based off the 80s TV show, with the in-game graphics being very similar to the show. This arcade game revolves around you taking control of one of the turtles and fighting your way through multiple levels and battling enemies from the show. Up to 4 people could join, with everyone controlling one of the 4 turtles. I used to love going to arcades back in the day, and I loved to death playing this old school game. And not long after the arcade game's success, they ported the game over to the SNES with several new changes to help improve it. But then many years later, they remade the game again for the Xbox 360 and PS3 and called it TMNT Turtles in Time Reshelled. And today, we're going to take a look at and review this remake. And as you can probably tell from the tone of my voice, I'm not looking forward to playing this remake. But enough's enough, let's go ahead and jump into this review, shall we? The game starts off with an opening cutscene of April doing a news broadcast about Krang and Shredder and of stealing the Statue of Liberty. Very easily, I might add. So the Turtles are sent into action to get the statue back. Yeah, so this opening cutscene is the exact same one from the arcade version. The SNES one is also pretty much the same thing, but without voice acting, and Leo talks a bit more. Now, off the bat, here's an issue I have with this game. Why has nothing changed here? Look, I get it, it's a remake and they want people to feel nostalgic, but this cutscene is no different than the arcade game. Couldn't they have made it more interesting and add more to it by chance? Like, for example, instead of just having Shredder laugh at the Turtles on TV, couldn't they have had him talk to the Turtles? Plus, the animation is so lackluster and boring. We don't even get that cool opening music sequence from the arcade version. I mean, what's next? Loading screens? Oh, son of a bitch! Yep. This game loads a lot, and it takes a pretty long time to get through. I just want to play the game, man. I mean, it's not like someone plays a video game for the loading screen specifically. Oh man, I love this game so much, especially this part. Isn't it just amazing? Now let's talk about the gameplay in this game. It plays the exact same way as the original, except not as fun. Yeah, imagine the SpongeBob Fun song, but remove everything fun, and this is what you get. The attacks and combos are just the same moves over and over again. Slam the guy on the ground, whack at him, and kick him. That's what you get for calling the Wii a bad console. And that's pretty much all you do. In the original and SNES versions, there was a huge list of button inputs to perform cool moves on enemies. But here, it's just haha spammy spammy. But don't worry, you can mix up your attacks by jumping! Now this is high quality gameplay. I also want to mention the art style in this game. I hate it. It's just so basic and boring. The original had that classic cartoon look, and even the SNES version has some awesome looking sprites. But this, it's just so lame. The Turtles look like they were ripped straight out of the 2002 TV show, except they're 3D and look like they want to murder someone. The backgrounds also look pretty bland and boring too, like they didn't even try to make it look interesting at all. Now the lighting looks alright, but it's not enough for me to change my mind about this game's horrible art style. Now the game is pretty short, with it only being around 45 minutes long, but I will admit, the level variety is pretty good. You got a city level, the sewers, prehistoric times, a pirate boat, and even space! But a lot of the level designs have been downgraded big time in this remake. I mean, in the first level, we come across Krang, who has a really annoying voice in this game, and he starts shooting us with his eye lasers. Or, at least, attempts to. It's so easy to dodge his attacks, and he just keeps doing it over and over again. He probably wishes he had a new job right now. Then starts the sewer level, which is the high-speed surfing section mixed in with fighting bad guys. And this was just completely ruined in this remake. In the original, you moved way faster, and there was way more enemies to fight. But here, it's just a boring auto-scroller. On the bright side, they kept the My Toes Hurt animation in this remake, although it's not nearly as funny.
My toes! My toes! My toes! My toes! My toes! My toes!
And then there's the bosses. Now yes, the bosses are classic Tmnt villains, but man, they're so easy to beat in this game. I mean, most of this fight against Leatherhead was just jumping over his attack that he loved to spam. And no, I'm not talking about that kind of spam. Again, in the other two games, the bosses were way harder and more fun to fight. But I felt like one of the developers played the arcade version as a kid and thought, man, this is way too hard. So he came up with an idea to nerf the bosses. When you beat this game in an arcade, you felt really good and accomplished. But when you beat this game, it's like, whatever. I do like the new health bars though. Then there's the music, and out of all the changes in the remake, I honestly think this is the worst one. They replaced the entire original soundtrack with boring generic rock music that wasn't even that good. I mean, how do you go from this to this? The old music made me feel super excited, but this? Yeah, I'm not that into. This remake does feature an online mode too. Unfortunately, I never found another person, so moving on. Once you beat the sewer level, a hologram Mush Shredder gets mad at you and teleports you to another timeline, which is pretty much how the game starts off, the whole jumping from one timeline to the next. However, the remake is missing some key things. Like for example, there's no Rat King nor Technodrome, and that's because those were SNES exclusives. Since this remake is based off the one from the arcade specifically, they never had these additions, so yeah, more of the fun parts of the SNES version don't exist here, and that just makes me so sad. Now you may be saying to yourself, SuperSonicJB, you've only been talking about the negatives of this game. Where are the positives? Well, for one, the controls feel pretty smooth. They make every button have an actual use instead of inputting some long, complicated button input to get your special. The voice acting is also pretty good. They got the 2003 TV show cast, the voice in this, and I think they sound great. Also, it is pretty faithful to the arcade version, just not as fun. In the end, we get to battle both Krang and Shredder. Krang is very repetitive, but not that hard to beat. Also, he just kinda runs away like a coward before we can even finish him off. He must have left the oven on or something. But after that, we finally get to battle Shredder in 1991, which was the year when this arcade game was released. And I'll say, he's actually a pretty decent boss. I mean, he calls you Turtle Soup, so that's a plus.
Turtle Soup! My favorite!
And when you beat him, he ends up falling to his death. Well, maybe. I don't really know if he's still alive or not. And the game ends off with the Turtles returning the Statue of Liberty to its rightful place. So yeah, in the end, I unfortunately wasn't a big fan of this remake. It just lacks some of the charm from the original and SNES versions. Now, if this wasn't a remake per se, and it was its own game, I think it would be an okay game with nothing revolutionary. Out of all three versions, I think I like the SNES version the most. There's more content in it, and the music and art style are awesome. But this remake, yeah, it's probably the worst remake I've ever played. And this guy said Link's Awakening on the Switch was the worst remake he ever played. I need to send him this game. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who like this game, and that's okay, because it's your opinion and not mine. And before we end it off, I want to tell you guys something. I went on vacation last month, and I went to an arcade with the fam, and there was a TMNT game there, and yeah, it was basically the same thing as Turtles in Time, but revolved around the 2012 TV show, and it featured different stages. It was a fine enough arcade game, but not as fun as the OG game. Where am I going with this? I don't know, I just wanted to mention it somewhere in the script. So yeah, Turtles in Time Reshelled was definitely not a good remake in my opinion. Thankfully, my remake is much better. I mean, look at me right now. The graphics are amazing!